Hello, welcome to Gurukul's CAT 100 series, a series that's designed specifically to take you from your study room to the corporate boardroom. I am Prady Sharma and this is Verbal Mastery with Prady. Welcome back to another video. Now, this is the passage for today, and in case you want to take this up as a test, then all you've got to do is go on to www.thegurukul.org.in and sign up for the 100 days to CAT test series. Okay, this is a completely free series for all of you so that you could practice your quant, LRDI and verbal ability every single day till your CAT 2025 and crack it in your first attempt. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the passage and questions. This is your paragraph number 1. Pause the video here, jot down all the main points, and then we'll go into the paragraph number 2. This is your paragraph number 2. Pause the video here, jot down all the main points, and then we'll go into the paragraph number 3. This is your paragraph number 3. Pause the video here, jot down all the main points, and then we'll get into the questions. Now, this is your question number 1. Pause the video here, answer the question, and then we're going to go into the question number 2. This is your question number 2. Pause the video here, answer the question, and then we're going to move into the question number 3. This is your question number 3. Pause the video here, answer the question, and then we're going to move into the question number 4. Now, this is your last question of this passage. Please pause the video here, answer this question, and then we're going to move into the passage and question explanations. What do we get from this passage? The first thing that we see is that dangers come and dangers, but also dangers go. And when they do, the brain has an all-clear signal that teaches it to extinguish the fear. A new study in mice by MIT neuroscientists shows that this signal is the release of dopamine along a specific interregional brain circuit. The research therefore pinpoints a potentially critical mechanism of mental health, restoring a calm when it works, but prolonging anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder when it doesn't. So what is happening over here? First things first, from here to here, what do we understand? We understand that now brain gives an all clear signal. That means everything is okay, kind of a signal, which essentially removes the fear. Okay, removes the fear from our mind. Now, there was some kind of a study by MIT neuroscientists, it doesn't really matter who did that study, some kind of a study which is saying that the release of dopamine, so apparently there's something called as dopamine, which when released between some brain structures, okay, is able to restore calm. Okay, it's able to restore calm. But if this does not work, if this restoring calm does not work, if this releasing dopamine to restore calm does not work, then there could be prolonged anxiety, that means anxiety which keeps on going, or even post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, now let's get into the second paragraph. Dopamine is essential to initiate fear extinction. So this is the major thing that we are getting from this entire passage repeatedly. So probably this is the main idea of the research, that dopamine is very, very important for initiating, for starting the fear extinction. That means end of the fear. Says someone who's the co-author, says Michelle, who's the co-author of study from the lab of senior author Susumu Tonegawa. Again, doesn't matter. She's someone who is saying this. Okay, and I think, yes, throughout this point, it's just her credentials that are keeping on coming again and again. So the entire paragraph I can conclude, or I can just take it from one line, that dopamine is essential. Dopamine is essential to initiate fear extinction. Great. This is the idea that we get from the first paragraph. Let's go into the second paragraph. In 2020, Tonegawa's lab, so the lab that we just saw in the previous page, Tonegawa's lab showed that learning to be afraid and then learning when that's no longer necessary result from a competition between populations of cells in the brain's amygdala region. So there's some kind of a fight or some kind of a competition between, cells that is happening in the amygdala region. So some brain region, okay, which basically tells us, okay, or which basically shows us that learning to be afraid and learning when there's no longer need to be afraid keep happening. When a mouse learns that a place is dangerous because it gets a little foot shock there, the fear memory, so probably this part of whatever is given over here is nothing but a small experiment, that the mouse is getting a foot shock when it enters some place, and that is telling it basically that it needs to be afraid of that place. The fear memory is encoded by the neurons in the anterior basolated amygdala, or ABLA. So ABLA is encoding the fear, okay, that expresses the gene RSPO2. Okay, very technical. You don't really need to remember all the names, because when such a terminology actually comes in a question, you can come back to the passage, you can just look at it once about what's happening. Okay, when the mouse then learns that there's a place is no longer associated with danger because they waited at that place, probably they went to that place, they waited, and that zap does not come, that shock does not come again. Neurons in the posterior basilated amygdala or PBLA that express the gene PPP1R1B encode a new fear extinction memory. So nothing, anterior of that BLA is expressing that there should be fear, and posterior of it is saying that there should not be any fear. The fear is now gone, the fear factor is now gone. Okay. Notably, those same neurons encode feelings of reward, helping to explain why it feels so good when we realize that an expected danger has dwindled. So what's he saying? The same neurons, okay, the PBLA neurons are the same ones which are encoding the feelings of reward. That means feelings of happiness. That is why when a danger is gone, we feel relaxed, we feel happy, we feel like, thank God the danger is gone, right? So that is what's happening over here. Now, the last part of the passage, okay, in the new study, the lab, okay, obviously the lab that we were talking about, led by former members so and so, sought to determine what prompts these amygdala neurons to encode these memories. So what is even putting them, what is even motivating them to form these kind of memories, okay? The rigorous set of experiments the team reports in the proceedings of National Academy of Sciences show that it's dopamine sent to the different amygdala populations from distinct groups of neurons in the ventral tegmental area. So from the VTA, whatever dopamine is being sent, this is what is pushing them to make such a a memory of fear being taken away. So dopamine is very important for our fear to go away. Our study uncovers a precise mechanism by which dopamine helps the brain unlearn fear. So their study is basically telling how dopamine actually helps the brain unlearn the fear. Okay. So says Zan, who also led the 2020 study and is now a senior associate at OrbiMed. Okay, it doesn't matter where she is a senior associate. Okay, so we found that dopamine activates specific amygdala neurons tied to reward, which in turn drive fear extinction. So what happens? The dopamine is, activating amygdala neurons which are tied to reward, and those neurons are driving the fear extinction. Okay, so this is the main idea that we are getting again. We now see that unlearning fear isn't about just suppressing it. So it's not about suppressing fear. It's not about, hiding fear deep within. It's a positive learning process powered by the brain's reward machinery. So this is also like a learning process. This is also you learn how to forget that fear. So it's a positive learning process, and it's coming from the brain's reward machinery. The reward machinery which is fueled by the dopamine. This opens up new avenues for understanding and potentially treating fear-related disorders like PTSD. So by learning how this happens, we can help treat diseases like PTSD. That's what the author is trying to tell in this entire passage. Now that we're clear with the passage, let's get into the questions. But before we go into the question explanations, please tell us in the comments how many questions you have attempted and what were the answers to that, so that we can cross-check after the question explanations are done about how many you have gotten correct. And if you stay till here, please drop that like here, because that helps us a lot and motivates us a lot to bring these kind of videos for you every single day. So let's quickly get into the question explanations. Question number 1, which of the following best describes the most significant contribution of the new study as presented in the passage? A, it identifies the specific brain regions in the amygdala responsible for encoding fear memories. Now see, what is he saying? We need to find the most significant contribution of the new study, right? But this thing, it identifies specific brain regions in the amygdala responsible for encoding fear memories. See, we are not talking about fear memories or fear extinction. We're talking about the mechanism of fear extinction, right? So definitely this is not going to be my correct answer. B, it demonstrates that the fear extinction is a positive learning process rather than a mere fear suppression. Yes, true. This is what has been uncovered in the new study, but this is just a byproduct. This is not the main contribution, right? So this is going to be my partial scope choice. I'm going to remove this. C, it pinpoints dopamine's role and the precise neural circuit involved in the brain's all clear signal. Now this is broad enough, and this is exactly what the new study is talking about, right? The role of dopamine and the fear extinction. Correct. So this could be our possible answer. Now D, it explains why realizing a danger has dwindled often leads to feelings of reward. Again, this is a consequence of the study. This is one of the understandings of the study, but it's not the main contribution of the study. So I can remove this. Again, this will be a partial scope choice. The best possible answer will be C. So let's go to the next question. It can be inferred from the passage that a person suffering from prolonged anxiety or PTSD might have a dysfunction in which of the following? Now, see, what's he saying? Someone who's suffering from anxiety or PTSD. What could be the problem with all of this? Obviously, the dopamine might not be going. No, if he had dopamine, that fear should be extincted. If fear is gone, they wouldn't have this problem with prolonged anxiety or PTSD. That's what we've learned. That's the causation that we've learned in the passage. So let's search for an answer in that regard. The ability of ABLA, the anterior BLA, expressing neurons to encode fear memories. See, it has nothing to do with encoding fear memories. Even if you encode fear memories, those fear memories should somewhere be taken off as well, right? So this is not going to be the correct answer. The competition between ABLA and PBLA neurons in the amygdala. See, no matter what competition exists, still you need dopamine to come and clear that thing off. So this can also be taken off. The expression of PPP1R, 1B gene in the PBLA neurons during reward encoding. So if there's this PPP1R, 1B gene in PBLA, obviously maybe that fear extinction process would start. So amongst A, B and C, this is a better answer so far. So I'm just going to keep this. But again, he's saying that what can be inferred? What is that person suffering from? He's having a dysfunction. Is he having a dysfunction in the gene allocation? Not really, correct. So far it's good. It's okay for us to take it. But let's read D. If D is better, we'll have to go for D as our answer. The precise mechanism by which dopamine helps the brain unlearn fear. Now this is a perfect answer. If there's dopamine is there and it is showing that there's some kind of a mechanism by which brain is unlearning fear, then that will be much better, right? If this does not work, that person can never forget fears. Okay, even if this is there, that person may or may not forget fears, because if this does not release dopamine or if this does not contribute to dopamine flowing in that brain circuitry, nothing would work. So for us, compared to C, D is definitely a better answer. So D will be the correct answer. Now let's go to question number 3. The author uses the phrase all clear signal primarily to. So we've already seen this while we are explaining the passage. Okay, so what is this all clear signal? It is basically the brain mechanism for saying that yes, I'm able to forget the fear now, everything is good now, you can come out. So illustrate the distinct electrochemical properties of dopamine in the neural pathways. So it's not talking about the distinct electrochemical properties of dopamine. It's not talking about all the properties that are there in dopamine. So I can just remove this. Okay, metaphorically describe the brain's mechanism for extinguishing fear responses. Yes, this all clear signal is nothing but the metaphorical response, no, the metaphorical description, right? So metaphorical description means what? It's not literally what the brain is saying. We are understanding it that way. It's just a figure of speech, correct? So this should be the positive answer so far. Emphasize the brain's ability to completely erase traumatic memories. Wow, this is such an extreme answer, guys. What do you mean by completely erase, traumatic memories? No, it's just that the fear is being taken away. Your traumatic memories and all are not going off. Okay, so D, highlight the conscious effort required to overcome feelings of dread. Now this all clear does not highlight conscious efforts, right? So dopamine is coming, we are learning something actively, that is what's happening. But this consciously we're not making an effort, right? So D can also be taken off. The best possible answer over here would be B. Now let's go into the last question of this passage, guys. Which of the following findings, if true, would most weaken the new study's conclusion that dopamine is essential to initiate fear extinction? That means what the question is asking, that which of the following A, B, C, D, if this is true, okay, would most weaken? That means it would say that dopamine is not essential. So we have to find an option which says that dopamine is not essential. So the best possible answer for this question would be saying something like dopamine is definitely not needed. A worst possible answer, most possibly weaken. At least it does not strengthen. Maybe irrelevant, but it does not strengthen, right? So mice with genetically enhanced dopamine receptors show an accelerated reaction of fear extinction. So what is happening over here? If the dopamine is increasing, fear extinction is increasing. That means definitely dopamine is necessary for fear extinction, right? So this is basically strengthening the choice that we need dopamine instead of weakening it. So obviously I can remove this from my answer. A separate study finds that fear extinction can be initiated by stimulating glutamate pathways in the hippocampus even without dopamine release. So I don't understand what glutamate, actually I do understand as a psychologist, but even if you do not understand what glutamate pathways and hippocampus, again hippocampus is about memories. It's a structure that supports memories, long-term memories to be very honest. But even if this pathway and all you don't understand, what you should understand is that even without dopamine release. Now this is the keyword. If dopamine, I have taken off the role of dopamine and I'm saying that fear extinction is still happening. Okay, obviously this is weakening it, right? This is weakening my choice, right? So far this seems like a good answer, but let's look at C and D. Maybe there could be something that's more strongly weakening this. Okay. Researchers discover that certain antidepressant medications increase dopamine levels in the VTA without affecting fear extinction. So what is happening now? This is complicating the entire process, okay? So there are certain antidepressants, okay, which are increasing the levels of dopamine, great, but they're not affecting fear extinction. So they're not saying that fear extinction is beginning or not beginning. They're just saying that it's not getting affected. Okay, so what is the complete story? We are not able to assess from this. So this will be an irrelevant answer. So still compared to B and C, I would have eliminated C. I would still go with B. Now D, it's observed that humans with chronic anxiety disorders have lower baseline levels of dopamine in the amygdala compared to healthy individuals. Now what do I understand from this? If I have dopamine less, these people are the same as the ones who have chronic anxiety. So if they had dopamine more, maybe there wouldn't be chronic anxiety. So this is again strengthening my choice and not weakening it. So obviously I will remove this. The best possible answer for me over here would be B. Now that we've come to the end of this video, please tell us in the comments how many questions you've gotten correct. Drop that like button if you've stayed till here. Yeah, that really motivates us to bring new videos like this for you every single day and help you in your CAT 2025 prep. Please send this video to your friend who's also preparing for CAT 2025 but is constantly on the YouTube searching for news, tips, tricks and strategies so that he can find one place where he gets quant, LRDI and verbal ability. I'll see you in the next video.
Hope you enjoyed learning from today's session.
This series is designed to help you with your CAT preparation and practice daily. We are with you in this journey.
To watch the next video, click here. And to watch Gurukul's CAT 100 series, Study Room to Boardroom, the entire playlist, click here.
If you learned from today's session, like, share and subscribe.